Tips from Trestle is brought to you by eMenu Choice Point of Sale, Wizox AI, and Benny Keith Foods. Welcome to Tips from Trestle, the Senior Living Food and Hospitality Podcast. This podcast explores the senior living industry with a unique focus on food, hospitality, and the community experience. I'm your host, Aaron Fish. My goal for this podcast: educate, inform, and inspire leaders in senior living. How? By bringing the resident and customer experience to the front of mind in our industry. We should bring the passionate spirit of food and hospitality to everything that we do and everyone we serve each and every day. So what are we waiting for? Let's get to it.
With me today on Tips from Trestle is Bonnie Brindle. Known as the Anxiety Avenger, she has a heart for healing and a toolkit full of transformational strategies, and shares her personal journey from anxious to empowered and how she's now guiding seniors to do the same. As a psychotherapist, author, educational consultant, and international speaker, Bonnie has helped countless people find calm in the chaos using a unique blend of talk therapy, evidence-based energy work, and alternative healing methods. If you've ever felt like anxiety is running the show in your role as a supporter of seniors in your community, this podcast is aiming to be your backstage pass to reclaiming peace and purpose. Bonnie, thanks for joining me today.
So great to be here, Aaron. Thanks.
Yeah. So first of all, let's start with you being the Anxiety Avenger. What inspired you to take on that title, and how does it shape the way you approach helping others?
Thanks for asking, because that's something that sticks out a bit, the Anxiety Avenger. And yes, it is a title that fits me because in my younger adult life, I dealt with debilitating panic disorder and agoraphobia, which is essentially the inability to move about in the world at all. That came from a highly dysfunctional family. And these are things that a lot of us don't talk about too much, but I decided in order to help other people feel less alone and not be stuck in the shame of such things, that I wrote my book, Cracking the Crazy Maker's Code, to help people see that they're not the only ones with these situations. But through that dysfunctional education in life, I struggled to get myself out of high school and into college. Did make it into college despite my family's not being helpful. But then my anxiety disorder, which developed around being in the family with alcoholism and psychological abuse, etc., I dropped out of college after the first semester because my anxiety was firing up. And that was my lowest point. And I didn't imagine it at that stage that would be a gift that I with other people to help themselves. But as I matured, I realized that I had an ability to help others. So I became a therapist and a coach and an educator, and now an educational consultant around all of this for the seniors and their caregivers in particular.
I think that I have figured out to become the expert in what I do, I have to use my lived experience to really message what I'm trying to explain and how I get through that, especially when it comes to leadership development. And so that story really resonates with me, and I'm sure it does with the listeners. I want to talk a little bit about working with seniors and the anxiety around transitions, because we all know how even the most willing and ready to move senior coming into a senior living community, it's still a major transition for them. And so when you think about the people you've worked with, the seniors maybe you've helped, what are some of the more common sources of anxiety that you've seen during their transitions? And what should family and caregivers truly look for?
Glad you asked, because as you said, even folks that are most prepared and ready to make the transition, it's enormous. And for those who are not ready or are fearful, it's a lot. And the caregivers and adult children who have always been thought of as the children, trying to help take over with these roles, it can become really fraught in relationships. So seniors that are ready to transition out of their places they've lived for years might be experiencing the loss of their spouse, the loss of good friends and neighbors, the actual moving out of a home they've lived in for a long time. Maybe their adult children don't live near them. Maybe they're having physical challenges, loss of mobility potentially, and that full life living that they have enjoyed potentially for many years becomes more restricted. And that's really stressful and scary for people.
I can only imagine going from a place that is mine, that has always been mine, and even currently having lived a little bit through that transition of going from the child to the caregiver or the supporter with my own parents, the awkwardness of all of that is definitely something to go through. And so what would you say so once they move into a community, what are some of the things that maybe staff should focus in on or things to think about as those residents transition?
Well, once they've actually moved into a facility, they may have difficulty making friends. They may have some fatigue, excess worry about things. Maybe they didn't worry about it at the level they currently might be focusing on that. And usually when folks move out of their homes and into a living situation, they usually start with independent living, right? So as caregivers and staff may notice there's some confusion, fatigue, they might be restless and irritable, difficulty concentrating, and then looking for any changes in physical mobility or housekeeping or personal cleanliness and that sort of thing that can follow depression, because anxiety and depression are siblings. And when people are concerned and worried and overwhelmed, sometimes we start to shut down, especially those of us in the senior pool, because we're not sure what's going to happen next. So there's a whole lot of energy mixed in there. And then you bring a staff into a situation that's working to help the seniors as much as they can, and they bring their own stuff with them. And then dealing with seniors who might be having emotional struggles, it becomes a whole pot of difficulty if we don't focus on how can we all help ourselves to calm and release the energy that we're bringing to the relationships.
Do you find that when residents move into maybe memory care or have more of cognitive issue, are these things compounded by that, or can it be maybe more carefree because maybe they're less aware? Or have you seen any of that in the work you've done?
That's interesting, because people would think, wow, if there's a trajectory from independent to assisted living to memory care, you might think that some things get worse. And the level of physical care of people definitely is elevated. But it is true that folks who lose some of their memory abilities, and sometimes folks who are moving into dementia and other areas of memory care, sometimes are less stressed because they're not focused on the details of life that they were focused on before and the losses maybe that they had. And, some years ago, the philosophy around people in memory care used to be, well, you've mentioned your wife, Susie, 8 times, honey, she's not here. Let's move on. Instead of that, we're figured out that meeting people where they are is what's more important. So yeah, hey, Susie is here again today. I'm so glad to see her. What are you guys planning for this afternoon? Right? To keep their anxiety, keep that person from stressing, because they will stress if they have an idea, if it's fantastical, of what's happening and someone else is trying to tell them that's not correct, that's not happening. So that's a piece in the memory care thing that I think we've evolved into. That's an improvement for sure.
Yeah, I forget what the experts call it, but I see posts all the time online about, they say don't lie to residents or don't ever do that. But sometimes you have to remind yourself it's meeting them where they're at versus actually lying to them, right? Because you wanted them to be, again, calm and carefree and stress-free. And so
Yeah.
thinking about the staff and their well-being, that's one of the areas that you really emphasize. When you're working with staff or communities and operators, what do you find are some of the early warning signs that staff should look for in themselves or even in their teammates when it comes to stress and anxiety?
For over a century, Benny Keith has been a trusted leader in the food service industry. As a broadline distributor, we offer an extensive selection of products, delivering to 21 states through 10 distribution centers. We can help you create a thriving culinary culture by pairing quality products with customized solutions that elevate your residents' dining experience. Our team of registered dietitians provide unmatched customer service by modifying menus, selecting recipes, ensuring regulatory compliance, and more. Quality, value, and service are at the heart of everything we do. Benny Keith Foods puts the care back in healthcare.
Yeah, it's helpful to keep an eye on your teammates and be there to lend a hand when needed. But yeah, caring for elders, whether it's a family caregiver or a staff member, it is tough on a good day. Tough when everything goes well, right? You're dealing with someone who potentially does not want to be in the situation that they're in, who's feeling a loss of control and is being ordered about, they might feel, by someone who's younger and less experienced in life than they are. And so, staff are expected to show up with a smile on their face and, take everything forward every day. And that's a lot of pressure. So if they're coming to their experience with pressures in their own life in the first place, and they've got some struggles of their own going on, and then they're placed into the work situation where they're working with people who are angry and sad and frustrated sometimes or not cooperative, it's really important for them to take care of themselves, to use some of the natural strategies that I'll tell you about later to help remove their own blocked energies and to be able to keep a boundary or bubble around not getting emotionally involved with someone else's stress and anxiety, whether that's the senior or another teammate or a superior in the workplace, to not take other people's stress on. That it isn't about you when someone in a senior facility is angry because they're not being able to do something that they want to do. They're frustrated and feeling sad. None of that is about any of us. It's about that person's experience. So when we can kind of bring ourselves back to a 30,000-foot view on that and recognize that it's not about us, it can help if we don't get entwined emotionally. But it's not easy.
I have so many examples of somebody coming in a bad mood. Who knows what the energy is driving that? But then it spreads almost like a wildfire, right? Like so-and-so is grumpy, so now I got to avoid them. And then, well, that throws my day off. Well, that kind of sets me off a little bit. And then, all right, now that person's got to deal with 10 residents today because it's part of their routine. And it just snowballs from there. And if that happens day in and day out, I got to think that impacts the community operation as a whole as well.
Absolutely. And you have families and caregivers. It's just, I want to say, families and caregivers supporting seniors are like any kind of facility leader or C-suite executive. They themselves are in the leadership position to help seniors experience positive days, right? So if they don't have that support of the folks that are above them and the organization, if they don't have the support to be able to share that kind of leadership, things will break down quickly. And they need, the upper echelons need to be there sometimes on the front lines and connecting with people and checking in and making sure that they're recognized for the work that they're doing and that they feel valued. If they don't feel valued, you know what happens.
Absolutely. So your book, Cracking the Crazy Maker's Code, you've got 9 steps that you have in the book that you go into detail on that will help individuals ease anxiety. Now, I don't want to give the farm away, right? We want people to go get the book and read it. But I'd love for you to highlight 2 or 3 of those steps that are especially relevant for caregivers or the chefs or the managers that are working in a senior living community that can help them with their anxiety.
Okay. And I'm glad you mentioned everybody from the C-suite to custodial and kitchen. Everybody has a role. Everybody has an idea. Somewhere there's some idea or input that could be valued from anyone on any level. And it's really important in an organization that everybody has an opportunity to, no matter what their role is, that they can be a valuable member. But yeah, in my Cracking the Crazy Maker's Code, 9 Simple Steps to Ease Anxiety, easily accessible read. And at the end of each chapter, as you mentioned, there's 9 chapters, and there's a printable guided journal that goes with the book that you can print out and go through the action steps yourself. So one that would be helpful for people to be able to ground themselves with was the end of chapter 3, where the action step is to list the characteristics of a trusted friend. And these can apply to your actual friendships and your work relationships as well. Listing your characteristics, Erin, as a friend and a supporter. And then also what characteristic you are looking for in a friend and a supporter, so that you can look at yourself. Am I the kind of person that I want to connect with, work with, be supported by, and how I can support somebody else? That was one from chapter 3.
I really like that, because it's almost like doing very basic, like even business wise, like what's my like strengths and weaknesses, right? But putting it not necessarily as the performer or the employee, but as somebody who can be supportive, as somebody who's that friend who has that relationship. And so the business guy in me like really relates to that.
Oh, I'm so glad, because you know that often it's just that what's your role, do your thing, stay in your lane, right?
Yeah.
But if we're looking at our strengths and our challenges as human beings interacting with each other, then everything goes more smoothly. And a company doesn't end up having to rehire people who have left because they're unhappy, right? Yeah. So, and another one was chapter 5 was list events, maybe relationships, opportunities that you believe anxiety has either stolen from you or changed in a way that made it negative, like take something away from you in that situation. And then you can maybe go back later on and circle the most important things, considering what you could change to remedy those losses. I mean, like just in my personal life, when I was deeply anxious, I missed out on being in my best friend's wedding. She asked me to be in the wedding, and I was too anxious to go through all the things to do that. So the answer was no. And my other best friend, when I lived in Boston, lived in New York City, and I didn't visit her for 5 years because I couldn't get on a plane or take a train or whatever. So whatever anybody's anxiety sort of behaviors are, it can affect all of us every day.
No.
Technology continues to drive changes in senior care, and that includes food service. eMenu Choice is an award-winning point-of-service application for managing the dining function in senior living communities. This mobile, touchscreen-enabled software enhances the dining experience for residents while streamlining processes for staff. The flexibility and functionality of eMenu Choice makes it an effective solution for any type of senior living environment, from independent and assisted living to skilled nursing facilities. It works for production kitchens or restaurant-style service with options for per meal or a la carte pricing, and accommodates a variety of payments, including bill to account, meal credits, and credit cards. Created by a senior care provider with more than a century of experience serving older adults, eMenu Choice eliminates communication barriers between staff and residents while enabling person-centered choices and greater resident satisfaction. eMenu Choice, transforming dining for senior living.
And I appreciate that, because I think there's a little bit of that going back and finding the ones that are hit the most, because in the moment, at least for me, whenever I have one of those anxiety inducing things, it feels like it's literally the most important thing at the time. Like whether it's, well, I'm worried about being rejected when I put a proposal together, or I get really anxious because nobody is on the webinar that I spent 3 hours preparing for, or something like that. But then being able to go back and look at that and say, well, the rejection on the proposal, probably a 3 or a 4 on a scale of 5, whereas the webinar, it's like a 1, right? Like I know it's good content. I recorded it. I can use it later. So that look back, I think, can be so invaluable in what you're describing.
Oh, I love that, Aaron. I love your vulnerability on that. Thank you for saying things that people think every day. I made this proposal. Crap, it didn't work out. I'm a whatever, right?
Yeah.
I spent all this time creating this project and nobody bothered to show up. I'm a whatever. We all go through this. The stories we tell ourselves and hold on to. There you go. So people will say, well, I'm not anxious. I can fly in a plane and be on a train and blah, blah, blah. But every day in our little monkey minds, we have those things that just bother us, about ourselves and our relations and our work. And there is so much we can do about releasing that instead of carrying them for 3 or 4 days till they die off and the next thing comes up, right? Exactly. That's life. The next thing is always coming out. So yeah, learning strategies to, I feel this thing coming up. I've created this project. I don't know if people are going to show up. I'm going to be fine no matter what happens. I can use this, like you said, use this material at any other time. It might be 100 people. It might be 2, whatever,
Definitely.
But we'd get in our monkey minds about a lot of things all day long.
All day, every day.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the one other piece was looking at challenging relationships. We all have them. So that was in chapter 8, was to list challenging relationships that we have and note our own behavior in those. Because a relationship is always more than one person, right? Looking at how we handle these challenging relationships and what we'd like to change about our own approach to them. We know that other person's approach is part of the issue if it's a challenge, but how we respond or react, which is worse, to that is all about how that relationship could potentially improve, become worse, because we always have some leverage over it because it's our own participation that we can look at. Yeah.
One of the things that we touched on just a little bit ago was this kind of energy in the community. I kind of talked about people bringing their vibe into the community. And so when we think about the larger kind of community that we're working with on a day-to-day basis, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about how you help those organizations help them shift their collective energy into maybe we'll call it a more peaceful environment or a more well-regulated environment, maybe.
Well-regulated. We all want that. Yeah. So when I am giving a talk in a senior facility or I'm doing a consulting work, what I'm looking for is the level of psychological safety, right? So by privately interviewing staff at all levels and finding out their experience in it, I'll look for the overall feel of what it's like to be part of this community, what it's like to work there, what's it like to be a supervisor, what's it like to have to answer to 4 different levels of people sometimes, because that's how things roll. So looking for whether people are happy, connected, feel supported, or sometimes, like in any business, and I'm sure you felt this like I have, feel intimidated or mistrusted or micromanaged to a point where they kind of, I'm just here being a drone. Those people are going to leave and you're going to end up rehiring. So when we look at the psychological safety of an organization and then can start working through that, when I'm looking at leadership, what is it that's causing you to feel the need to micromanage? How can we help you release that? When I look at a staff member, where is it you feel you're not appreciated or that your talents aren't being used in a way that makes you feel like you want to show up on Monday morning and bring that understanding so that the needs of the residents, the staff, the supervisors can be more aligned and better communication. And certainly for the higher level employees and managers to spend time in the front lines with the folks who are doing the daily work and helping to make them feel seen and understood. It's worth gold. That's all I can tell you. It's worth gold when there's not, here's the hierarchy, here's the staff, and we're separate. No way. Mm-mm.
I've found that to be the antithesis of success. So
it's not uncommon in a hierarchy in corporations, in school districts, and whatever. Folks have a hard time connecting. And if we could just connect more as a full team, everything goes more smoothly. The bottom line is going to increase because people are going to want to be there and be with you.
yeah, absolutely. As we kind of wrap things up here, I'd love for you to share with us when you think about the role that family and caregivers play in supporting those emotional transitions, just how can they collaborate better for better outcomes and that creating that right energy in the community?
So it's a big expectation for family members who haven't dealt with any of this to suddenly be good at doing this.
Right.
They don't come with the toolkit of, oh, well, I know how to talk to my parent, whatever senior in my world, and flip the relationship. The younger person, I don't care if you're 55, your parent still sees you as a kid.
Right.
So suddenly you're the leader and you need to take charge. So the caregivers getting the help that they need to understand how to manage themselves and not get completely burned out, and how to communicate with people who are increasingly potentially frustrated and angry and fearful. It is worth the time and energy to invest in individual therapy or coaching for how to approach someone who is struggling emotionally. There are, in my book and in the journal that I wrote for, it helps people sort of create a path out of what if I am stuck in this place and I need to be able to connect better with those around me. And don't forget, there are talks on senior living and how to care trainings. I have online communities, both for seniors 60 and up who can get onto Zoom and connect with each other. And I'm developing one in the next 30 days for caregivers specifically, because I've been asked to do that. Want just a place for caregivers to do an online community. But don't forget that in every town, you also have senior centers. Senior centers have tons of resources and ideas and can point you in directions to get the support that you need. Really wonderful people who really have a handle on exactly what you're going through.
Yeah.
I'm just finishing up writing a source book called Soaring Seniors Source Book for seniors to look at their own experience and how to move into independent living and all those changes on their own, which could also be valuable for caregivers to understand or staff to understand this.
It sounds like a great resource for communities to use, even with prospects as they're looking at the transition. Like
Exactly.
one more piece of the puzzle of all of this, because there's so many moving parts. So,
Yeah.
Bonnie, as we finish here, I'd love for you to share where listeners can connect to learn more about you, the work with you, things that you can offer them, and to figure out and find information about where they can get your book.
Okay. It's really simple to reach me. My website is just my name, bonniebrindle.com. And on there, the best thing to do is just click right into the contact page and tell me what you're looking for. Just throw a note. I'll write back and tell you how it's working. No obligation. No, just I answer questions. That's what I do. And then for those who might be looking for a talk for a senior living facility, which I have several coming up in August, I'll be traveling to Connecticut for some of those. It's my name again. I have a site. If it's just for my speaking work, bonniebrindlespeaks.com. So those two sites, bonniebrindle.com, bonniebrindlespeaks.com. You can contact me on either one, ask me whatever question you have, and I'll guide you where you are looking to go. And then the book is available as paperback, Amazon Kindle, and Audible. If you're interested in the paperback in particular, on my website, I can send you a personalized copy for no more than it would cost you to buy it out on Amazon. So if you like me to personalize it and send it to you, I can find.
We will put a link to the book in the show notes as well. So
Great.
we'll put all of that so everybody can easily find you and connect. Well, Bonnie, thank you again for this great conversation. I think for me, learning more about dealing with anxiety and how this impacts the work that we do with seniors every day is invaluable.
I agree. When people think of hospitality industry, they think of food and beverage, right? hospitality, to be hospitable, is to create community in which everybody feels valued and everyone is protected. So I think this is a great subject for your hospitality industry to look at, because when all of us can be better employees, better friends, calmer, happier seniors, happier staff, the bottom line is going to go up and your place is going to be the place to be and your industry is going to grow. Simple as that.
Absolutely. So, Bonnie, thanks so much for joining me today on Tips from Trestle.
Thank you. It's great to be here, Aaron.
So there it is, everybody. Another one in the books. Thanks again for tuning in. Please follow, like, and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to follow us on social media at Tips from Trestle. You can also learn more about the work I do by following me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok. And be sure to check out Trestle Hospitality Concepts at www.tresselhospitalityconcepts.com. I'm your host, Aaron Fish, and this has been another episode of Tips from Trestle.